Coming up, Audrey Hepburn's granddaughter joins us on today's topic of women helping women and why it's crucial we all do our part in today's time.
The Whitney Reynolds Show was made possible by Theraderm. We believe that every person should have the opportunity to look as refreshed, young, and healthy as absolutely possible. Children's Learning Place, excellence in early childhood education since 1998. Sharp Vision Modern LASIK, believing is seeing. Sciton, because results matter. Fresh Dental, keeping smiles fresh. And Kevin Kelly with Jameson Sotheby's International Realty. Luxury is an experience, not a price point. And by other sponsors. Hollis Plyman and Company, CPA firm. The Cryo Bar. Cellular Intelligence. Tutu School of Chicagoland. Deluxe Cleaning Services. Chicago Andrea Creative. Goldfish Swim Schools of Chicagoland. Barkbusters Home Dog Training. Instagram My Selfie. And Export Fitness.
Women helping women. Is this a new trend? Are the days of clawing your way to the top over? And is there really enough pie for everyone? Today we are addressing these questions with women who are shaping the answers. You're watching The Whitney Reynolds Show. Celeste Watkins Hayes spent a decade documenting the lives of over 100 women living with HIV and/or AIDS. During her research, she discovered something unexpected. Not despair, but rather tons of hope, and is using her research to be a megaphone and platform for these women. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So this project you took on, tell us your passion behind it.
Well, in 2005, I started interviewing women living with HIV. And what brought me to the project was just curiosity. I was hearing about the growing numbers of women who were finding out that they were living with HIV. I had been a research assistant as a graduate student on a study where I interviewed one woman who was living with HIV. And I got really intrigued by this notion of what is it like to receive a medical diagnosis that many believe to be a death sentence, that has a large and robust activist community behind it, that was getting attention in the popular media through films and books and plays. And I wanted to understand, what is that lived experience like, living with HIV, given what we were hearing at the time in the larger national conversation about the epidemic.
And just to clarify, HIV leads into AIDS?
Absolutely. So basically, there's several stages of HIV. And once HIV has gotten to the point where one's T cells, one's helper cells are below 200 and one is experiencing other symptoms, then it becomes what we call stage 3 HIV, which is another way of saying AIDS.
Okay.
So what you'll find increasingly is people talking about stage 3 HIV disease as opposed to AIDS, because the term AIDS, unfortunately, has been highly stigmatized. HIV itself is highly stigmatized, but that term has a finality to it that no longer really applies in most cases when we think about the epidemic. It's now a chronic manageable illness. So there's a desire to kind of reframe the illness and the epidemic so that people understand it as something that's treatable and that and people can have long-lasting lives despite being HIV positive.
That is amazing. And then why did you choose women?
Well, much of the epidemic and the conversation around the epidemic was centered around men. So women are about 1 in 4 cases of people living with HIV in the United States, but they're over half of the people living with HIV globally. So there was a way in which in the United States it got framed as an illness that was facing gay white men. And there were so many other people who were grappling with the disease. There were people of color, women, all kinds of individuals who were grappling with HIV. So I wanted to tell the story of women who I thought were getting forgotten in the larger conversation around HIV.
Wow. And then what did you discover in the midst of sitting down with these women?
A couple of things. One of the things that I discovered that wasn't necessarily a surprise was the way in which the epidemic was absolutely driven by inequality. So in terms of how women were able to protect themselves or not, how they got exposed to the illness or not, it had a lot to do with situations of disadvantage, whether it was economic disadvantage or social disadvantage. Not always, because I also talked to some women who were very heavily resourced, but nevertheless still contracted the illness. So not only did I get fascinated with the idea of HIV as an epidemic driven by inequality, driven by the lack of healthcare, driven by lack of access to information about treatment. The thing that struck me, though, was that that's only part of the story. So women talked about, yes, experiencing HIV as what they interpreted to be a death sentence. And yes, they were talking about the past traumas and the disadvantages that they were experiencing and the stigma that they were grappling with. But many women didn't stay in that place. They moved from what I call dying from to living with to thriving despite HIV.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
I like all those stages sound very positive.
Absolutely. And it begs the question of how does that happen? How does one move from dying from to living with to thriving despite? Because I was focused on HIV, but you can imagine that that framework applies to many different things. People are dying from stigma. People are dying from poverty. People are dying from the afterlife of sexual violence. So thinking about how do people move beyond that place became a real interesting question. And it turns out it's a sociological question. Women weren't doing it on their own. They were doing it with the support of a community. So,
interesting.
Yes. So then it became incumbent upon me to learn what is this community that's supporting women? What is this community of women helping women? And what has happened in the HIV world is there has been a safety net that's emerged since the 1980s. That out of the AIDS activism that we might have remembered from the 80s, what we might have seen on our evening news, there's been a support system that's been created out of that for people living with HIV, and women are a part of it. Wow. They're providing a number of things. They're providing very, very robust social support. So during my research, I sat in on HIV support group meetings where women were giving advice to each other. They were sharing information about the latest medical and scientific discoveries. They were thinking about how they were going to take care of their children. They were supporting each other as they grappled with the stigma and previous traumas that they might have experienced from their lives. And they were building a community. The other thing that they were doing was that they were brokering resources for each other. They were connecting each other to healthcare. Go to this clinic versus this clinic. Go see this doctor versus that doctor. They were sharing information about the latest medications, what side effects they were, and helping women get access to the healthcare system. They were also providing on-ramps to political and civic engagement. So it wasn't just about receiving services. It was also about how do you then give back? How do you pay it forward? Whether you're supporting and mentoring another woman who's living with HIV, whether you're becoming a paid employee of an HIV social service agency and serving as a case manager or a peer navigator to help people who are coming into their diagnosis learn how to navigate the system so that they can get to a place of care. Or whether they're saying, we need to go talk to the legislatures. We need to get active politically. We need to push this legislation through that's going to help people who are in our situation. So teaching women how to speak truth to power. How do you use your story to help others? How do you use your story to influence the public debate? How do you use your stories to shape policy? That's what the HIV safety net is teaching women and men how to do.
Wow, that is amazing. And our motto here on the show is your story matters. And I think if people really take that into their own realm, like not just with HIV, because that is amazing, but really with just like knowing that it matters and you can have influence through whatever you're going through.
Absolutely. And women could point to specific examples. Yeah. So I often tell the story in my book of a woman named Gina Brown. And Gina served on President Obama's HIV/AIDS Advisory Council, influencing policy around HIV. She's a survivor of sexual trauma. She's had experiences that have been harrowing in terms of her ability to survive homelessness, poverty, and she's such a wise person that when she was diagnosed, she didn't stay in that place of dying from. She completed her education. She has a master's degree in social work. She's helped nonprofit organizations understand how they need to work with communities. She's one of the most vocal voices out there nationally in terms of women living with HIV. So the thing that I find so inspiring about this community is it doesn't label people. It doesn't count people out. It figures out how to give people the support and the tools to be successful and to really be impactful in the world.
That is amazing. Let's do those 3 things again. Dying from,
to living with, to thriving despite.
That is so good.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
Next up, we have a young woman who is not letting her age stop her from literally changing the world and honoring her grandmother, Audrey Hepburn's legacy. Meet Emma. Does she look familiar? Not only does she look like her grandmother on the outside, but also in heart. Let's see how she's changing the world. With everything that's going on tonight and with UNICEF, how does this feel to be you and be here?
I'm really I'm going to be 25 in a month. I'm really at the beginning of this journey. I've done work with UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and I did a mission trip with them. I've done volunteer work with UNICEF, of course. But I'm kind of baby steps for me. I feel like this is definitely a lifetime commitment for me, and I feel like I owe that to my grandmother. I really do.
And so that really is where it's coming from, is you feel like you owe it to your grandma.
Yeah, I mean, in a very good way, in a very positive way. I feel like she started something that was truly unique and special, and to not honor that would really be a waste and a shame. I think it needs to be, she laid the foundation, and now as people here tonight are doing and all over the world are doing, we have to continue that. I think it's our duty.
Women empowerment, something we've seen trending on social media. Let's take it to the viewers to hear how today's topic has impacted you.
Well, first of all, I love helping other women, so it's part of everything that I do, and I get to really experience it on a regular basis. Every month, I invite these women to my home, and I created this dinner party where women come and they open up and they tell their stories, and we have these open discussions about topics that relate to everybody in the room. And when I say women helping women, it's been so incredible to see how these women bond together, and they end up doing business together. They end up supporting each other on different events. They just really gather and bond and do so much for each other that it's incredible.
I created the space Evolver to connect women across the city, and it's been amazing to see the support and just women coming together, sharing knowledge and really connecting. Our members range from like 22 to 85 in age, and so it's a really broad range. And so there's mentorship up and down, and just that sense of collaboration across the board to help advance women and pull their sister through.
Get social with us and make your voice heard. Add your video on WhitneyReynolds.com or on social.
Now we have a dynamic comedian who stars in a show highlighting the challenges women can face. She's tackling some heavy issues and is doing it with a smile and laughter. Here's Aidy Bryant.
So with your new show, Shrill, one of the themes that I pull from it, I know a lot of people are seeing all sorts of themes with
body image. Sure. But one of the things I see is women supporting women, from the writing process to the, in your life, you've been doing that. What does that mean to you with supporting fellow women?
Oh, God. I mean, it means everything. To me, I feel like every step of the way in Chicago, at SNL, everywhere I've been helped along by great female mentors who, encouraged me or helped guide me in the business part of this. And so I mean, if I can help do that at all or encourage that, that's great.
And when you see people looking up to you and other little girls, what would you want them to know about supporting each other and how crucial that's been?
Oh, I mean, I hope they know that, we're stronger together, and so better to help each other. And
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
How to get women trained and back to work after whatever hurdles and hardship have come their way.
My name is Carrie Stiller, and the Women's Bean Project has helped me immensely with my self-confidence. If I've learned anything from working here, it's attaining small goals and achieving them.
I'm Linda Ortiz, and what motivated me to come to Women's Bean Project, I needed direction. I needed a job. I took that breath and I came in and I put my application in, and they hired me here.
I'm Chelsey. The Women's Bean Project definitely saved my life at a time when I was struggling. They help us feel empowered, and they help us to notice our strength and our resilience in everything that we do.
Welcome to the show.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
So we just watched a little bit of a testimony from 3 women. Tell us about how you got started in all this.
Well, my involvement with the Bean Project began as a volunteer, and I was looking for a way to be more connected into the community. And I loved the idea of Women's Bean Project because there is a business, and the better the business does, the more women can be served, because the more sales we have, the more women we can hire.
So tell us, who developed this originally?
A woman named Josie Eyre is our founder, and she was volunteering at a daytime homeless shelter for women and kids. And what she saw was that the women would come in and use the services of the shelter because they didn't have a place to go during the day. They were not only homeless, but unemployed. And they'd come and use the services, and it would keep them safe. But the women would leave and because they'd get a job. And the same women kept coming back over and over again. And so she was getting her master's degree in social work. So she was there for a whole school year. And by seeing that these same women kept coming back, she realized that somebody needed to help them not just get the job, but to learn the skills to keep it.
Right.
So she had this idea that if I could teach a woman to work by actually working, that would be the cure for poverty.
Interesting. So kind of some easy connect the dots, but big picture.
Big picture. And what I respect about her idea is that I think we all look around and see things we don't like,
right?
But not everybody does something about it.
And that is true. That is really true.
Exactly. And so her idea was pretty simple. She noticed that a lot of her friends were eating beans for health reasons.
Oh.
She was in her late 50s at the time when she'd gone back to school. And so she started making one soup mix, 10-bean soup, and put 2 women to work. And that was the beginning of what today is a thriving social enterprise.
That is incredible. So it started with an easy soup.
Yep.
Then it just grew. So tell us about how it grew and how you train these women.
Well, we grew from very few sales, just local in Denver, to today we're in about 1,000 stores across the country. We have a lot of stores in the Midwest that carry our products, for instance. Wow. And then we have a lot of online relationships. So in addition to selling on our own website, we sell all over the country.
And you hire these women, and it's not to keep them long term.
No, we're a transitional employer. So we hire them to work for us for 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
And then they're hired for a full-time job, and they make an hourly wage.
They're hired with you.
To work for us. 70% of their paid time is spent working in the business in some way. So it would be on the production line or in our shipping department or helping us basically make the business work. And then 30% of their time is in program activities. So it's time that she will learn computer skills and financial literacy and planning and organizing. And those are really skills that ultimately will make her a better employee, but also I think make her a better mom and a better community member. And, it's kind of adulting.
Yeah. And so what if you really liked someone and you wanted to keep them on pass? You know you have to give them their go out and move mountains yourself kind of moment?
It's bittersweet. It's really bittersweet because when someone, from the first day each woman starts, I meet with every group and I talk to them about creating a dream for themselves and thinking about what they want their life to be when they finish. And I think, 6 to 9 months isn't that long a period of time to change their life. But they start on the first day maybe seeming angry or defensive or scared or hopeless. And then in a pretty short amount of time, they literally transform. And so while it's sad to see them leave, it's also so amazing to see what they're going to go do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably parenting is a bit like that as well.
Absolutely. And so you get these women in. How do they apply to be part of the program?
Well, the number one way women are referred to us is by someone else who's been in the program. This year is our 30th anniversary. So we have lots of women in our community who have been through our program, which is good and bad, I think, because it's also a reflection of intergenerational poverty. Because we'll have a woman and her cousin and her aunt and her sister over time. We've even served 3 generations of the same family. They come in and fill out an application, and then there's an interview process. And they interview we're interviewing them for readiness. We're trying to determine, is now the time that you're ready to change your life? Because we aren't a place you come to stay the same.
Yeah, so it's really a life-changing time. And the jobs that they go out and get afterwards, do you help them in that process? Like apply, identify what they're great at?
Yeah, we do all of those things. They develop a resume and a cover letter, and then what we call a letter of explanation, which is practice for talking about what her past has been and why now is different and where she's headed.
Oh, I like that.
And I think that that's super helpful because every woman we hire is going to have gaps in her employment history. So she's going to need to address what she's been doing for the past however many
anybody could use a letter of explanation.
I suspect that's true.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea for, employers everywhere to do, just of like who you are.
Well, and we also then have them take this evaluation called Career Scope. And that takes both their aptitude and their interests, and it literally spits out a list of potential jobs. What I love about that is it comes from a place of possibility, because so many of the women come to us thinking, well, nobody ever is going to hire me. I mean, and they'll say, well, you hired me because that's what you do, but no one else is going to hire me. And then suddenly there's a list of the kinds of jobs that she could have. I really think that that's a pretty amazing experience for them as well.
It's identifying what they're good at and helping, like, okay, you could do this, this, that.
Yeah, and as opposed to, sometimes there are things on the list jobs I've never even heard of.
Wow.
And so in that regard, it's also helpful.
Yeah.
Because it really just opens up their mind to more ideas. And then we prepare them. They have lots of practice interviewing. We'll help them learn how to do a job search. They'll have learned the computer skills while they're with us to be able to apply online and, all the things that it takes to get a job today.
And this is a for-profit company, but has the nonprofit side?
No, our whole corporation is nonprofit.
Wow.
So we operate our food manufacturing business, and that pays for about 60% of our operating budget.
Okay.
And then we fundraise the remaining.
Oh, you do?
And so everything that we fundraise through grants and donations goes to support the program.
That is so amazing that a woman saw a gap and then decided, I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take women along with me. Why did she choose women?
Well, she was volunteering at a daytime homeless shelter for women. And so I think she was specifically seeing the plight of women.
Yeah.
And also I would say that I think women are more vulnerable to gaps in their history really leading to low self-esteem. What we see today is that though she was very focused on homelessness, she founded our organization before we had welfare reform, before we were really seeing the effects of mass incarceration on women and families. And so today, the reasons that we exist, I think, are different. But what I'm really proud of is that we stayed very true to that original idea.
That is awesome. And you've grown now. Tell us how many people you have working with you.
Well, we have 12 full-time staff members who, serve a variety of functions, from accounting to sales to fundraising. And then in a year, we'll hire roughly 65 women.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
Today's topic doesn't just stop with women. This program, however, introduced you to some of the best ladies who are leading with love. And honestly, That's a pretty good takeaway. We must all do our part. Well, that's it for us here today. Remember, your story matters. For more information on today's show, visit WhitneyReynolds.com.
Go beyond the interview with Whitney Reynolds' 52-week guide of inspiration. The book goes deeper with the topics you see on The Whitney Reynolds Show. To get your copy for $12.95 plus shipping and handling, go to WhitneyReynolds.com/store and use code PBS. The Whitney Reynolds Show was made possible by Theraderm. We believe that every person should have the opportunity to look as refreshed, young, and healthy as absolutely possible. Children's Learning Place, excellence in early childhood education since 1998. Sharp Vision Modern LASIK, believing is seeing. Sciton, because results matter. Fresh Dental, keeping smiles fresh. And Kevin Kelly with Jameson Sotheby's International Realty. Luxury is an experience, not a price point. And by other sponsors. Hollis Plyman & Company, CPA firm. The Cryo Bar. Cellular Intelligence. Tutu School of Chicagoland. Deluxe Cleaning Services. Chicago Andrea Creative. Goldfish Swim Schools of Chicagoland. Barkbusters Home Dog Training. Instaglam My Selfie. And Export Fitness.